this is part 2 of my adding a tray ceiling and doing a truss modification in my home. Now this here, as I showed in part 1 of the video, if you didn't see that part 1 and you're not continuing from it, I would definitely recommend that you take it and give it a good look. It's very interesting, and if nothing else, it's very informative. So now that we're on part 2, I'm going to show you what the before picture was. Of course, at the end of the video, I'll show you the grand finale, the big reveal, if you will. Now this here is what it was before I started the project, and this here is the target area I wanted to add my tray, and I was also going to do 3 clerestory, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, clerestory windows up here above my French doors in my study area. So there's your before. Now moving along, this here I've already started making my outline for where my tray was going to be. It wound up being almost exactly 6 by 6, and I did my very best to mirror the tray dimensions to the adjoining room in the dining area. Now this truss was left in place. This is right next to the header, right above my door. This truss were the 2 that came out. The next truss that was over here I left, so these 2 were the outer supporting trusses for the project. So what I did is, I started peeking my head in there in the center, and I worked my way around and made a few more little holes. Then I took the world's biggest T-square. I basically just took a piece of Luan, which was 4 by 8, and I kind of made a T, and I drew the lines all the way around to the size that I needed it to be. And now I had a little hole so I could stick my head in there so I could start getting work done. There's the line that I drew, just as a illustration, whatever. Now you can see here I have the main 6 by 6 hole cut out, and you can see everything now is exposed. Okay, this truss, you'll see in later photographs, I had to cut it right here and do a modification. Over here I had to do the same, and on this guy here, this king post truss, this one here needed some work. This one here was much easier. This one was a little easier. I also had to deal with some of this air conditioning and electrical wiring, and some of these alarm wires, and the doorbell of course got in the way. But these are the kinds of things that you learn as you go. A little more of a close-up so you can see what kind of work I was in for at the inception of the project. That kind of gives you a good idea of what my truss system looked like up in this area. Now this here is what I suggest you do, because this project, I don't know if you realize it, even though it's only 36 square feet, this project took me almost 80 hours to complete. And that was working all day, weekends, and as soon as I got home from work at 4 or 5 o'clock, I worked on this thing tirelessly with no breaks till 10 or 11 every night. So it's a good solid 2 weeks worth of work. Oh yeah. Now, you're starting to see some of my work. Now, of course, when the structural engineer at the truss company gave me my plans, he makes it very clear that you have to support all your work before you even think about cutting your trusses out. So you can see on my first truss, this one here, they wanted me to support it on the outside with double 2 by 8s. Me being as crazy as I am, I also went ahead and added 2 bys on the inside, used tons of carpenter's glue. You can see I ran that right along here to this part of the truss, which I had to replace and add, which goes straight up to the ceiling. Over here I added 2 bys, which also were added because it's impossible for me to keep a 2 by 8 straight and hold it. Something especially it's 8 feet long, 2 by 8 is a heavy piece of lumber. So I used these, got it on the one side, had it laying on the other edge so I can start building, comfortably without having to kill myself. And of course, some of those electrical issues that came into place, there was a lot of this. I had to do this with 3 circuits. Very straightforward, just get yourself a junction box and the clamps, cables. Nothing too exciting going on there. Next, I also had to fight with this. This is one of my AC ducts. It had a 9-inch inner diameter, so I got a similar piece with a right angle, and I had to extend this approximately 10 feet to where it terminated in the study area. Now, this here is that same truss that I was showing you earlier, where I sandwiched the 2 by 8s, And later on, you're going to see when I cut this out, I took a Sawzall and ripped that straight down. This piece here was okay. We didn't have to mess with that because the tray came up a foot and it came in a foot and then it went up a foot and over a foot, so this didn't cause me any trouble. On the other side was a different story. I had to cut that out. And you can see all my framing. Basically all it is it's all Douglas fir. I used 2x. It's basically a big rectangular panel with some cripple studs. You know, there was about 3 or 4 for each piece that I had made. This was the second truss, which had a piece of the webbing coming straight through. You could see how awesome I am. Look how perfect that cut came in there. So when I got to there and I had the 2x8 installed in here, this one, unlike this one they had me do double 2x8s on the outside of the stud, closing it in, and before I made my cut. This one was the opposite. This one they wanted in between the 2 adjoining pieces of the truss, so, because there was apparently a lot of tension on the bottom cord that the engineer had felt on this one, so that was done that way. And you could see this one is sandwiched on the inside of this truss. This piece that had gone straight up to the ridge beam that came down had to be removed because it got in the way of the outer end of the tray ceiling. This beam I had to run up alongside of it, sister it, and I took several of these gusset plates to you know, just keep it more rigid. And there I am working hard. Now you can see this is a good clean shot. Actually, my camera worked well today. They had me do a circular pattern around here when I was putting in these new pieces. Over here, same thing. I nailed the hell out of these big gusset plates. I made them oversized, so wherever there was a cut and 2 pieces of wood met, they required these everywhere, so those were always put in. And same thing, I was explaining the rectangular boxes with the cripple studs all along there. This here is the wall by the header of the front door. I just did 1x3s and I used that as part of my wall to cheat, and it saved me time. And another shot. Basically this thing is completely framed now at this point. Electrical is not done. And this here is the beginning of those clever story windows, which basically I took the frame that was there, I drew a line and made 3 windows, and I have all my you know, stuff there. Now I'm starting to install my sheetrock. I did it piece by piece. I didn't have to worry about it. If it had been a flat piece of drywall, I would have opted to have it as a single piece and waste the center. But in this case, I was doing a knockdown texture to match this, so it didn't have to be pretty, so I didn't have to really get too fanatical about all of this here. The only thing that is going to wind up being painted is this step, that's it. And there's going to be crown molding at the end, so that's going to be there too, so pretty forgiving as far as that goes. And over here you can also see how I had to hack a piece of this lumber out to get the size and dimensions I needed for those little windows over the French doors. Moving on, now you can see it's looking a whole lot better, almost ready to start spackling, which was the next step, of course. Lots of that. I went through probably about 40 gallons, if not more, just doing just this 6x6 in those little windows. A lot of sanding. Same thing here, tons of mud inside, outside, both sides, and I had to, you know, do in all these holes. You know, what a pain in the ass. Now, initially I thought that I was going to protect all this, do my knockdown, and I was going to paint. It never worked out that way, and I'll explain to you later how that wound up getting done, because I thought that the knockdown was actually going to work. The stuff that I went and got at the store, that spray can stuff, is not all it's cracked up to be. Actually, this turned into a very big aggravating learning process of how to do this knockdown texture to match at least decent. Now you can see it is completely done. The light is installed, the molding's done, it's painted. The knockdown looks almost the same. I mean, I don't have a hopper and a big fancy gun like some of these professionals do, but I'll tell you the trick. Basically, I took a sponge that's used for forks painting. It kind of looks like a sea sponge. I took it and I blobbed the joint compound up on the ceiling, you know, really heavily. Tried to cover it the best I can, and I just took a, you know, a tool, I smoothed it out, and I tried to keep it all in the same direction that I felt was happening on the original ceiling, and it actually came out pretty goddamn good. It actually came out really good. Better than, it's impressive even to me. For somebody who's never done it, I mean, you look at it, you tell me. You know, when the wife doesn't complain and tells me I did pretty good, I think I did pretty good. So it's done. There you have it. Now the tray is done. You can see the molding. Standard Home Depot is 45-45 crown molding. Even though this here is at a slightly different angle, it's hardly even noticeable. Now all my windows are in there. I decided to lose the frame. I just installed this quarter round, and there's glass going into each 3 of these panels, and I sandwiched it in from the back to make it look just like the French doors. I tried to mimic that style to the very best of my ability. So let me show you real quick the before and the after, because I have both. And this should be when picture 6 or not. Let's try. Okay, there we go. Let's take a look at it now. There's your before. Oh, again. There's your before. Pretty unappealing and not nice. Could be better. To this. This is the finished product. So it is done. So if you have any other questions, if you are doing one of these jobs, you can see I went through a lot of work and effort to create all this video and all this information, documenting it as much as I have, because I'm pretty passionate about this job. It's a great feeling to have done this work, as long and stressful as it was to get what you're seeing. It's a great feeling. It really is. It's wonderful, and the savings are not too bad either. So if you're going to do this by any means, send me an email. I'll be happy to help anybody else who's doing something like this. Thanks for watching.